The chandeliers above the Hall of Ethertech shimmered with calculated brilliance, bathing the chrome and glass. Decor in a soft golden hue, waiters impressed. Black moved through the sea of investors, coders, and tech elites carrying flutes of champagne and trays of fusion hors d'oeuvres. It was a night designed to impress David. Rowan stood near the central display, a transparent holographic table pulsing with the newest AI. Prototype holding court with laughter and half-interest in the conversation. Didn't want to be there, these parties, these self-congratulatory showcases were nothing but glamorized smoke. But tonight the press was watching, and shareholders needed to see their visionary. CEO smile, his assistant leaned in your 10-minute demo. Wrap is next, David nodded, eyes wandering, and caught something odd at the edge of the room. Young woman, her posture stiff yet composed, was carrying a tray toward the back of the room. Not quite blending in, not quite disappearing. Either she wasn't. Like the others, her uniform was clean, but slightly frayed. Her gaze moved faster than it should have, observing, tracking conversations. She had no business caring about interesting then. Came the moment that would start it. Alan, investor half drunk and eager to impress, chuckled, heard the board partnered with some firm in Chengdu. Wonder what we're actually signing in those contracts, David. Bored and impulsive, reached for a folder his legal team had handed him hours earlier. It covered in characters dense and unreadable to most of the room. Translate this, he said, voice dry with amusement, holding the folder aloft like a toast, and I'll give you my salary for the month. Laughter, scoffs, some gasps of surprise. The legal document glinted. Under the lights dense with Mandarin legalese, no one moved. Except her. The server, the one with the two keen eyes, stepped forward. Her tray was already on a table nearby. Her voice came steady, not loud but piercing. I can do it, David turned, blinking excuse. Mesh stood before him now, under the glow of the holotable, not shrinking, not smiling. I said I'll translate it if the offer's real. The room silenced. Phones came out quietly, recording David. Raise an eyebrow, you understand this, he gestured to. The folder, this isn't a tourist pamphlet, it's proprietary. No, she replied. It's also not simplified characters, it's traditional regionally stylized cross. Referencing contract law used mostly in southeast provinces. If you're signing this without a native consultant, you're an idiot. Pause. Then someone near the back coughed awkwardly. David let out a single surprised laugh. What? Your name, Lena Torres. Well, Lena, he said, trying to recover some dignity, if you're serious, take the document. You've got 24 hours, my monthly salary, 480,000, if it's accurate. No, I know apps just... Yelena took the folder, her hands steady. I won't need 24. She walked away, back straight, eyes already scanning the first page. Lena's apartment was a 10-minute train ride and a world away from the glittering launch hall, third floor, flickering hallway light. She stepped inside, locked the door behind her, and exhaled. She didn't bother removing her shoes. Her fingers were already flipping. Open the folder. The first few lines confirmed her suspicion. This contract was dangerous. She booted up her laptop, an older model missing 3 cousins, opened her private language suite. Her notes folder was already organized. Syntax precedent. Clauses, red flag indicators. She hadn't lied. She didn't know the language. She had spent 3 years buried in comparative linguistics at the University of Osaka before fleeing that life before. It all fell apart by 200 a.m. She had translated 15 pages by 400 a.m. The final clause had been not only translated, but flagged in red. They were about to sign away control of their back-end encryption schema. Quietly, silently, irreversibly. She stared at the final line for a long time, then opened a new document and wrote her name at the top. Translation and risk analysis by Lena Torres. The next morning, David leaned back in his leather office chair, nursing an espresso he didn't like but drank for image. He was reviewing marketing reports when a notification blinked on his tablet. Message received from Lena Torres. He frowned, opened it. Inside was a neatly formatted document. No introduction, no explanation, just the full translation with annotations. He skimmed the first page, then another. His pulse began to climb. She hadn't just translated the document, she had dissected it. Stood abruptly and tapped his intercom ring in Legal Now. By noon, 2 department heads and a lawyer sat around David's desk, reeling. We didn't see this, muttered Rachel, the senior counsel, we missed this. David said nothing, just stared out the window. He could still hear the laughter from the night before. The joke that dare, the way he'd waved that document around like a party trick, the way Lena hadn't flinched. He opened his phone, no contact number, just the name. Just the quiet, firm certainty in her voice. He should have been furious. Instead, he felt something deeper, older respect. The email sat unread in David's inbox for nearly an hour, while he paced the width of his office, hands clenched behind his back, and mind racing through. Implications. Lena Torres, a name so small, yet now so full of consequence. He replayed her voice. In his head, not the words, just the tone, precise, confident. His phone buzzed again. Legal needed a decision on the contract, but he ignored it. Instead, he opened a new browser window and typed her name. Nothing, no academic papers, no LinkedIn, no mention in faculty listings or tech databases, but no red flags either, which was somehow more unnerving. He called security. I want her badge access flagged, but not revoked. Want to know when she enters the building, but do not interfere. No one approaches her unless I say so. He ended the call and leaned on his desk, jaw tight. He had underestimated her, and the cost was more than ego. If that contract had gone unsigned, they would have lost more than trust. They would have lost control, and somehow a woman who served hors d'oeuvres had stopped. Needed to know who she was and why she had chosen silence. Lena walked through the city like she belonged in. None of it. She kept her head down, her steps purposeful, but her mind was somewhere else. She knew what would happen after last night. The curious eyes, the whispered questions, the silence that shifted when she entered a room she could live with, that what she couldn't live with was the silence inside her own head, the part that asked if she had made a mistake by standing up, by speaking her truth when it was easier to remain invisible. She reached the public library, a safe haven, one of her few left, third-floor foreign language archives. Back corner, her usual seat. She pulled her laptop from her worn leather bag, opened the document again, and began annotating more clearly this time, just in case. She wasn't sure why, but part of her needed to do this, not for the money, not even for David, for herself, to reclaim the parts of her that had been buried under years of fleeing fear and exile. She thought of her father, his voice quiet as he read poetry in the kitchen back in Caracas. The ink stains on his fingers, the quiet warnings when the news began to change. She had trusted him, and he had trusted her now. She trusted no one. David stared at the folder on his desk, the one Lena had submitted. He read it 3 times. The analysis was not just accurate, it was surgical. He had a top-tier legal team, and not one of them had caught what she did. He picked up the phone. Rachel, I want to offer her a contract, consulting only, short-term, bring her in discreetly. There was a pauser. We don't usually pull people from waitstaff into strategic analysis. Then maybe that's the problem, David replied and hung up. He wasn't sure what this was yet, but it wasn't a favor or guilt or curiosity. It was something else. He shift. Hey, correction. Email arrived in Lena's inbox 2 hours later. Subject: offer of limited term advisory role. She read it once, then again. A title: just a short-term contract, clean language, fair pay, flexible hours, and a clause protecting her identity. It was better than she expected, but still she hesitated. Power came with exposure, and exposure came with risk still. She clicked reply. Will accept under the condition that I remain off internal directories and retain veto power over anything connected to external partners. She hit send and leaned back. It wasn't about power, it was about staying whole. The following Monday, she entered the office through the service elevator with a temporary badge clipped to her sweater. No one looked twice. David met her alone in the legal wing conference room, a modest glass space far from the upper floors you could have taken. The money, he said softly. I didn't want the money, she replied. Then what do you want, Lena? She looked at him without blinking. You. I want to never be underestimated again. His expression shifted, not defensive, not amused, just quiet. Won't be, he said. He handed her a tablet loaded with documents marked for international compliance review. She scanned the list with practiced easel. Need access to vendor contracts, regional reports, and the last 3 partner agreements from your Southeast team. Done, he said instantly. And David, yes, if I say something is a risk, I expect you to listen the first time. He Nodded once, understood. 2 weeks passed. She came and went quietly, never using her reel. Badge always sitting near exits, never lingering in hallways, but word traveled. The mystery woman with eyes that read too much too quickly, the one who spoke little, but sent emails that stopped projects cold. David noticed the shift executives who once rolled their eyes now quoted her notes with caution. Evan Rachel had begun forwarding her files directly without it. It's one night David stayed late. After everyone else had gone, he walked past her temporary office and paused inside. The lights were dim. The desk was scattered with notes, her laptop open, her hair tied back in a loose knot. She didn't look up but said quietly, "You can come in if you're going to say something real." He stepped in gently. "I just wanted to say thank you." Looked at him, then eyes sharper than he remembered it. "Thank Mu asked. For clarity, I gave it to put your company at risk. I stopped at that. It's not a favor, that's a consequence." He nodded. Slowly, Faya, she closed the file in front of her. "But I will tell you this, if you ever treat my work like a party trick again, I will walk, and this time I won't leave." Quietly, David stood still for a moment, then offered. A quiet understood. He turned to leave, then hesitated. "Who taught you to read contracts like that?" "My father," she said without emotion. "He was a teacher." David nodded once. "Then he taught you Welland." Then he left, not with ego, not with fear, but with respect. Tanned, something else blooming slowly in the silence between them. Recognition. The boardroom was unusually quiet. 12 executives. 2 lawyers and David sat around the long oak table while a projection glowed at the front of the room, graphs, figures, and market risks flashing silent libet. No one spoke. Beckos. Lena was at the head of the room, and she was not blinking. Her voice calm, cut through the air with the same light precision it always. "Caridior partner in Singapore is preparing to flip your distribution rights within the year if the subclause in page 9 remains unedited. You will lose 15% of control in your Asian logistics chain without legal recourse." Silence that followed was completical. Cleared her throat quietly. "I reviewed the agreement yesterday and I missed that." Lena's eyes flicked to her, but not unkindly. "You didn't miss it. The wording is designed to feel like background noise. There, counting on you to skim." Samaya, near the end of the table, muttered. "She's right." David watched all of it in silence. He had said nothing the entire time, just leaned back in his chair watching how the room had shifted. Ho! The men who once joked over champagne now leaned forward, taking notes. Show the boardroom now answered to the voice that used to carry a tray. Later that night, after the floor lights dimmed and the building quieted, Lena stood in the garden terrace, staring out at the sky. Linate was the only place she felt air not recycled, not filtered. Glass door behind her slid open gently. "Didn't turn you. Stayed late." Again, David said, his voice lower, less carefully. "Wanted to finish the report," she replied. Sawfly stepped beside her, not too close, but not to stand you. "Saved us Agantha wasn't the goal," she said, flat. "Lethan. What is Lynn?" Ash was quiet for a long moment. "On finale, when I left Venezuela, I didn't have a plan. I only had a bag and my father's voice in my head, reminding me that language is power and silence is danger, and for a long time I chose silence because it was safer. But last month, when you held up that folder and Laffitch turned finally, her gaze locked on Heezy, remembered what it felt like to be underestimated, be invisibled. I was done with it." David looked down, not ashamed, but humbled. "He didn't mean to mock you that nighty Nobot. You died and you gave me a stage whether you meant to or noth." Nodded slowly. "You took that stage and built a new floor under it." Half smiled, but it didn't reach. Her eyes didn't romanticize it. "David, I'm not your miracleem." Your mirror took a breath, and for the first time since their first meeting, his voice dropped into something. "It's not CEO, not Polishidra. Don't want you as a miracle, want you as Yahora." Lips parted, but no sound. Kamesh searched his face, looking for motive, for weakness, for anything. Halabot. It wasn't there. Adjust. Him quiet, steady, watching her without expectation. Finley, she whispered, "No one's ever said my name like it mattered, Zay." It again. It didn't move, didn't lean for, or just said it gently alone that time. It felt like a promise. Weeks passed, and her contract became permanent. But her office stayed small, by choice, and her name stayed off plaques and tightlish. Didn't need them her presence alone, now commanded the wait. Those names never earned people walked slower when she passed, not in fear but in deep respect. New interns whispered stories about her, how she saved the company, how she walked in with a tray and left with a signature that shifted everything but. They never saw her pause in the break room, hands wrapped around a cup of tea, eyes distant as if waiting for something just beyond the sky, line waiting. For someone to believe in her as she truly was, not the fix-or-not, the mysterious Lina Wone Friday. Afternoon, as summer burned against the tall glass walls, she received an envelopino name on it, just her inside. A single sheet note request. No demand, just a question. Will you have dinner with Mabello? At a date and time and a placenot, a rooftop, not a gala. Not a conference room, a tiny bookstore cafe 2 blocks from her apartment. Quiet, simple, unremarkable, stared at it for a long moment, then she smiled just a little and whispered aloud for the first time in years, "Me name is Lena Torresund. I am not invisible anymore."